Start us off.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cherie Stokes. I'm the partner liaison for Montgomery Tech Lab, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, our Tech Talk for the month, that's really focused on the Defense Accelerator and success stories from that accelerator. While we have opened applications for Cohort 2, we had a very successful Cohort 1 of the Defense Accelerator program this past summer. We have an opportunity to hear from both Trouble One, our partner in the Defense Accelerator, but then also some individuals and companies out of that cohort that successfully completed the accelerator program. Applications opened for cohort 2 on the 1st of October, and they are actually due on the 30th of November. These applications will be evaluated over the next couple of weeks following that, and we will select individuals to be in the 8-week program that will launch in January of 2026. At this time, I'll have an opportunity to turn it over to Chris Swimmer and then also Brian House with Trouble One that'll speak to some of not only the successes of the program, but also the program in general. Over to you guys.
Hey, everybody. We recognize we have some people live and some that will be seeing this recording later on. I'm Chris Wimmer with Trouble One. We are a defense consultancy company that have been operating for about 25 years outside of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And we have been working with startups and small businesses to understand how to work with the Department of Defense as it relates to getting their technology deployed, both developed and deployed to the warfighter. And we have been running accelerator programs in Alabama in partnership with the Montgomery Tech Lab, Charisse and Alessandra. And we're thrilled to be on the webinar today to share a little bit more about the programming and what it means for startups in the state. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Brian House, who is our executive director overseeing our programming in the state of Alabama, to give a brief overview on the program.
Hey, thanks, Chris. But yeah, like Chris said, my name is Brian House. I'm with Trouble One. I've been with Trouble One for about 6 months now. Loving the accelerators. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. Myself, I spent about 20 years in the Air Force. I've retired Lieutenant Colonel. And most of my time was in acquisitions, so working with providing innovative solutions to the warfighter, going through all the wickets that it takes to land contracts for the department, and dealing with all of those issues. So this area is really important to me, and I'm really thankful for the efforts that and the people at the state of Alabama that are allowing us to do this and provide value for these companies that that want to bring their technology to the warfighter. So a little bit about the program. The accelerator is an 8-week cohort-based program. It really has, the way I look at it, kind of three pillars, right? There's an education aspect. So we're going to help you to understand the Department of Defense, be able to, I call it, speak the language, but understand how we buy things, how we test things, how we field technology, and what the different organizations within these services care about. I think that's a very important part that a lot of small businesses don't realize that they're not understanding or where they're lacking. Another thing is communication or connection. Networking, relationships. We're going to put you in the room with people that can make things happen, right? Program offices, users, investors, science and technology, people that are on the inside, and give you their perspectives and let you ask questions. There's a lot of value in those connections that we can give you with the folks inside the service that are on the other side, potential customers. And then just giving you time to do some hands-on thinking about where your solution can fit, funding pathways, discussions, SIBR, STTR, what opportunities are out there, how you can establish partnerships with potential customers. So I think that's kind of the third, is just accelerating, giving you time to think about how you can move in the right direction for your company. So like I said, you're going to have direct access to people in the services acquisition community, people inside the program executive offices, and you'll be in a better position to engage those people upon completing the program. So that's a little bit of an overview of what I think of the program. Chris, I'll give it back to you.
Great, thanks, Brian. So we're excited for this webinar today because we have a lot to say about the program as Treble One, executing it alongside of the Montgomery Tech Lab. The Montgomery Tech Lab has a lot to say about the program, but the people that are really important to listen to are the ones who have been through it, the ones who decided to spend the time and the energy as they're building their startup companies to actually invest into themselves by going through this program. So we're excited to introduce three former participants in the Montgomery Tech Lab Accelerator program. We have Reggie Wilkerson with GuidePad, we have Miller Parker with Exo Armor, and we have Michael Knotts with Generational Systems. So we'll take just a brief kind of 30 seconds for each of them to do a quick background on themselves. And guys, if you don't mind also answering the question of, when you were looking back at the beginning of participating in this program, what initially motivated you to apply to this accelerator in the first place? So quick background on yourself and what motivated you to apply under that first cohort. We'll go ahead and start with you, Reggie, since you're off mute.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Reggie Wilkerson. My background is I was in consulting most of my career, working for companies like Accenture, Deloitte, worked at Oracle, was mainly on the technical side, did a lot of large-scale system implementations. And that led me to, start my own company. Initially focused on services, but always wanted to build a product. And so we ended up building GuidePad. And GuidePad is a universal developer tool. So it helps developers reduce the number of tools that they use to build enterprise-grade software. And, when I initially got started with the program, I was super excited when I saw it on, I think, LinkedIn initially. And started, trying to dive in and do some research. But certainly the Air Force is a very forward-facing agency within the DoD. And we were just really excited. And once we actually got started that first day and meeting Sharice, Brian, and Chris and the entire team, and just, kind of learning about their backgrounds and what they brought to the table and just kind of going through, if you will, a syllabus of what that next couple of weeks was going to be. It was really a no-brainer, and it provided us with a tremendous value throughout the experience. And we even had a few milestones, and a lot of that was from learning, working with the team. So yep, that's it.
Great, thanks, Reggie. I'll hand it over to Miller. So what little background on yourself and what motivated you to initially apply for the accelerator program?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Miller Parker. I'm still young in my career. My background schooling is in mechanical engineering, but I work as a product development manager at Exo Armor Technologies, where we provide on-site 3D scanning, design software, and 3D printing solutions for medical and athletic customers. Prior to joining the program, we had actually been working on a phase 1 SBIR and then a phase 2, direct to phase 2 SBIR. And so as a company, we were kind of getting used to getting our feet wet with SBIRs, but really wanted to have a better understanding of kind of how to bridge what they call the valley of death between a phase 2 and a phase 3. And also to help educate not only myself, but our other engineers on some of the outreach and some of the communication protocols, who to talk to, how to talk to, when to talk to them. Yes, it was in the context of the Air Force, but really a lot of the concepts apply not just to the Air Force, they actually apply generally to the entire DoD from what Treble One teaches in the program. So I certainly learned a lot. I've shared a lot with our other engineers, and I think the resources and the things that I learned in the accelerator program are really going to help us not only continue to get more grants and to do SBIRs, but also to finally bridge that gap and go from phase 2 to phase 3. And the resources that the people at Treble One taught us and taught me are certainly going to help us do that. So we were excited to do it, and I would encourage anybody else that has the opportunity to send anybody, whether it's a young engineer or somebody that's experienced, send them because they will learn a lot from it.
Great, thanks, Miller. Michael, hand it over to you.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to apologize for being late today. I had a meeting that's supposed to be done at 11:15 and it ran very long. So thank you all for the patience.
No problem.
Yeah, as Chris said, my name is Michael Knotts. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and founder for Generational Systems. At Genesis, what we are doing is making a new type of metal 3D printer. So if you know anything about 3D printing, you've seen plastic printers out there. They're very common, easy to use. Metal's not any of those things. It's got a lot of difficulty associated with it, a lot of expense, a lot of time. So we approached metal 3D printing saying, how could we take what has made plastic so accessible and try to apply that to metal? With that, we've developed a commercial prototype that's in pilot sales now, and we are rapidly expanding that. So we're thrilled. A little bit about what got us into the program. Full transparency, Alabama Power is what got us in the program initially. We had some contacts there, and they said, "Hey, Montgomery's starting up this MTL Defense Accelerator. We think it would be a good fit for you. We really encourage you to apply it." Or to apply for it. And when we took a look at it, we completely agreed. We were already trying to do some work in contested logistics defense space with the Army. We felt there was a great fit for the Air Force, but we really had no way of knowing how do we approach the Air Force. And so that's where we saw really a great mission alignment with Treble One to learn how do we start that process, how do we go in, and it has paid off tremendously. So high level answer, yeah.
Thanks, Michael. No, that's great. Well, this next question I'll kind of open up to all three of you and who wants to jump in, get a few questions more around kind of your experience in the accelerator. So starting with, how would you describe what a typical week looks like? So for those who are going to be applying and thinking about, okay, I got to take time away from my day-to-day operations and my startup. Is it worth it? Trying to understand kind of the return on investment of their time. What does that typical week look like as you're participating in the accelerator? If you could go ahead and speak to that, and we'll open up to any three of you that want to come off mute and jump in.
So I can start. Exo Armor is based in Auburn, Alabama. The accelerator program is based in Montgomery. So for me, I was relatively local, only about a 40-minute drive. So it's a typical day. I would get up. I think we had our sessions on Thursdays, drive to Montgomery, and then spend, 5 or so hours over there. And then after that, I'd sit in the session, learn, and I'd take some time afterwards to kind of read my notes, debrief. I would actually synthesize my notes to kind of prepare to present to the rest of the company. So, it seems like it could seem like a big commitment taking a whole day, but it's the value of the things that you learn. I think it's totally justified. And the session goes pretty quickly. You're there, you enjoy the company, you enjoy talking and learning to the people that are around you. So you're there for 5 hours, but it feels like one. It goes by very fast. So then that would kind of wrap it up. I'd drive back to Auburn, and that would kind of conclude my day. But pretty easy, I would say, overall.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Miller.
I definitely want to echo what Miller said in that it did not feel like a full day commitment. And that's to Brian's credit and the panel's credit. It kept it engaging. I always was surprised we were done when we were done. I was like, man, I thought we had a few more hours. And yeah, it was very information dense, but I mean that in a great way. Like Miller, I'm also an Auburn based company. And so our team's up here. And like he said, having that not too long of commute, getting ready to present it back to the team, great experience. And it was the information was given to us in such a way that I always felt I could almost just copy and paste what Brian told us with the PowerPoints or with my notes, and the whole team understood it. It was never a sorry guys, I don't really know how to explain this. It was succinct. It was great. A little bit of pain involved being an Auburn fan with Brian leading the charge on that one, but we got past that.
Great. Reggie, anything you want to add to that? Typical day in the life of a cohort member?
Yeah. So I'm a little further away, and I had travel pretty much every week, but it was to the gentleman exactly how they described it. Like it didn't feel like a full day, right? It was always, we were, pretty much always on time. Again, we knew the topic of the day or anything. There wasn't like any lots of homework, right? We're all building our company, so it's not homework. It's stuff that's going to help us to succeed and give us a leg up, going after work within the Air Force specifically. But yeah, it was the time constraints didn't really feel like any constraints. We kind of knew from the very first week when we got started that it was going to be a few hours each week, but it never felt like a chore or anything. It was actually it was a great program for sure.
I'll
Well,
add
yeah,
one
and
more
Reggie.
thing too.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Miller.
It's not the day in the life, but let's talk, weeks in the life. One thing that I've really enjoyed is, and what I grew to look forward to is actually seeing the other guys in the program and seeing Brian and Sharice and Alessandra. It just looking forward to seeing everybody again the next week. That was part of the fun and part of the enjoyability of the program as well.
Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate you calling that out. And one of the things I think all three of you mentioned was the importance of the work that you're doing throughout the cohort is building your company, it's building your business, right? So we're part of this, typical week looks like education, but it's practical, right? It's practical in nature to help you actually build your company, not just one day, but right here and now. And so maybe you all can speak a little more specifically to what are some of the sessions or the mentors or the panelists, some of the education pieces that were most impactful for your specific company that you felt like brought a lot of value to the here and now in building your company?
I'll go if no one else will. Oh, Miller, you want it? Okay, I
You
saw
can go ahead.
Miller.
You can go ahead.
Okay, so I'm unmute and remute. So one thing that was stressed in the program was making champions inside the Air Force, the DoD. That was a major component. And one thing that stood out to me was hearing firsthand accounts from servicemen and women saying, "Here's how I see that could be used." That was really impactful because you always have this idea of how you want your technology used or your product or service, but actually getting that I see value in this and here's how was a major benefit from the panel. Speaking to some of the kind of lessons that we went through with Brian, one that always stood out to me was just kind of the introduction to the S&T community in general, because as an outsider looking in, that can be daunting. And it can be very, at times it kind of feels like academia, where you see all these publications and very smart individuals, and you feel like, man, they don't want to talk to me. But getting kind of that breakdown of here's how the organization works, here's how you connect with the problems they are trying to solve and buy in on those same things really gave a clear path that at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to solve a different problem. And if you can connect with that problem and show here's how we can help, it makes it a much more direct and human conversation rather than this lofty academic and daunting, like I said, challenge.
And I'll say that, the panelists, what was awesome about them, the lunch and learns that we did, being able to see people that have been there and done that. They've some of them have been at small companies the size of ours, and so seeing that others have navigated what can be assumed as a very complicated landscape, seeing that others have done that and hearing their success stories, while we may not follow the same path, it gives us an idea of techniques, things that we can do, and it kind of gives us confidence to, hey, if you can do it, we can do it as well. And so the other thing about the lunch and learns I like too is it's kind of the breadth of speakers that Treble One brought in. So it wasn't just startups that maybe have been in our same shoes. There were other people as well. There were people from primes. There were people from different departments within the Air Force that came in and spoke. And so you're able to relate in a way to all of the speakers, even though their experience and their business may be different from your own.
Great. Reggie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Michael and Miller on those. The lunch and learns were extremely valuable. Hearing from sort of both sides, someone that is going through the entrepreneurial journey and work with the Air Force, but, even more impactful was hearing directly from the warfighters, those that procure the software that have the missions that we want to support is extremely valuable. And I'd also say that just learning for me specifically in our company, learning a lot more about the PEO offices and the various PEO offices that make up the Air Force and how they have different mission sets and things that they care about. And so that was very much eye-opening and really helpful.
Great. Thanks, Reggie and Miller and Michael. And for those of you who are looking at potentially applying to this program, what they're getting at is, we're doing different fireside chats, lunch and learns, panelists that are coming in. We have them come in from what's called the science and technology community within the government. So those that are in charge of research and development, funding and priorities, the acquisition community, those who can actually buy your technology as it gets developed within the government. And then the operational community, those who are actually the end users of your product. And so we have different panelists that come out and speak about their expertise and how to engage with each of those communities. I'm going to turn it over to Brian House real quick. And just, Brian, if you don't mind giving kind of an example, maybe some of the other panelists that we bring in through this program, or maybe even touch on some of the week's content that applicants can expect to see each week. You don't have to go exhaustive list, but maybe just a couple examples.
Yeah, so I think someone just mentioned operational community, so I'll kind of start with that one first. I mean, the way we kind of structure it is we talk in the morning for a couple of hours, and I've got some slides and material, and talk about how the organization works, who sits where, everything from where they live to who's in charge of the organization, and talk about the leader that's there, and so we just had a really good kind of discussion and presentation on what does it mean when you say the operational community. And then we'd follow that with a panel of people who have spent 20 plus years in most cases in the operational community and doing the things that we just talked about a couple of hours before. And so we do that kind of that same structure for the acquisition community. We had program managers who are in charge of multi-million-dollar systems. They came in and talked to us right after we talked about how the place is organized and where they work. So it kind of connects the dots for everyone, and it also allows you to hear their perspective, like some of the guys said, and ask questions. There was a lot of good questions that were asked, and it's the panelists. All the panelists really enjoy doing this, right? They understand the value that they're providing by giving you their perspective. So that's a great aspect of the program. But that's kind of the way we approached it with the panelists each week. We had investor panels that were great, that give you the perspective of what investors are looking for, and how you deal with them. There's government relations panel to kind of prepare you on what your government relations people care about, working with your local congressional offices, things like that you might not think about. Those are well-received panels as well. Yeah, that's just kind of off the top of my head, Chris, unless you think of something else.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I think in addition to the defense specific venture capital firms, the government relations firms, you also have an opportunity to meet with small business offices at the primes that Miller mentioned. And then this is more kind of probably over to you, Sharice, but you'll also have a chance to meet with local economic development leaders. So, Sharice, maybe you can take a minute to just share the importance of participating in kind of the local economy, right, and the state economy, and why these programs are so valuable, and how organizations like the Montgomery Tech Lab, like Opportunity Alabama, Innovate Alabama, how these organizations can support the growth of local startups.
Yes. So honestly, Montgomery Tech Lab was really birthed from the Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce and the city of Montgomery and County, really looking at how do we stimulate and catalyze the economy in Montgomery from a tech and innovation and entrepreneurship standpoint. So part of our goal is to, one, attract people to Montgomery, certainly, but then two, have individuals to understand the value of being able to not only start, grow, and continue your business in Montgomery. So part of the Defense Accelerator program is that we also bring in individuals that speak to some of the value add. We have an opportunity to engage with local colleges and universities where you have access to talent, you have access to additional research opportunities, but then also other companies and or DoD and Air Force units that are doing business. And so you'll have an opportunity to engage with those individuals to understand some of their mission needs, but then also some of the requirements they have and some of the valuable assets that you can actually engage in with those organizations. So for us, Tech Lab is really there to be able to connect you to those resources, to help to mentor and guide, but also to expose you to a number of individuals, companies, and organizations that could help your company grow.
Great, thanks, Cherise. So back over to the panelists that were participated in the prior cohort. As you think of your own companies coming into the start of the program versus your company as you exited the program and where you're at today, how do you feel like your maybe your story or technology, the way you approached defense coming into this program versus coming out of it, any sort of aha moments? How would you talk about how that shifted? How did that change? So you went through the cohort, you learned about, from an education standpoint, you got to talk and hear from panelists that were experts. You came in with a very particular viewpoint of the Department of Defense and how to market and sell and engage around your technology and your business. What did you leave with? And what was that gap between where you came in and where you ended?
I think one of the biggest things I learned, and by association, us at Exxon learned, was, in our phase one and our direct to phase two, I think we all had this assumption that, our sponsor would really help us, and they do, right? I mean, they're there every week, they're listening, and certainly they're an advocate. But the truth is, the needle doesn't move much unless you move it yourself. So that involves you building relationships. That was a huge part of the program, is building relationships with people in the different offices so that you can either continue your current SBIR into the next phase, but it also helps you get new grants, new work as well. And so I think the biggest transition was our assumption that, hey, these individual sponsors for each of our projects will help us get to next level, transitioning to realize that, hey, getting to that next level really is on us, and it's about the relationships that we build. And at the end of the day, while they may help some and we can rely on them, to get to that next step is really, it's on us. And that's our responsibility. It's something we need to be doing, not at the end of a project or a grant. It's actually something we need to be thinking about and doing at the very beginning of our project. So that was a huge takeaway for us. Certainly many more takeaways, but I think that was the most impactful for us, and certainly changes our strategy about how we think about communication, how we think about building relationships, and the timeline in which we start those communications and do those things.
Perfect, great. And while Reggie and Michael are giving some thought to it, we also have Craig Thomas joining us. Craig participated in the program as well. So Craig, happy to have you on the call. The question kind of raised to the group was, how do you think about when you entered the program, your thought process around the Department of Defense, how you narrated your story, how you approached selling the technology or going after research and development opportunities. What did that look like when you started the program versus when you ended the program, and how did it evolve over that period of time? Reggie, you just came off mute, so go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, no, I think I want to crystallize what Miller said. I certainly agree that you have to put in the work. You guys provided us excellent tools, got a chance to getting a chance to network with folks there in Montgomery and even outside of Montgomery in the greater Air Force community, which was awesome. But I really have to piggyback on something I said earlier around this kind of really knowing the PEO offices and how things work from that outward into the warfighter. And so, one of the things we were able to, get a meeting set up, in a few weeks, hopefully, with SOCOM, working with their PEO office down in Tampa. And so, just the learnings and everything from being in the program sort of kind of helped us go down that pathway. And even knowing the right questions to ask. There was a topic open for a SIBR, which was really right up our alley. And, we didn't want to just blindly submit to it like we kind of done before. We actually talked to the technical SMEs that were related to it, and just knowing the questions to ask just kind of really helped us, put forth a much better a much better submission. And so those are all things that we sort of learned throughout the program.
Thanks, Reggie. Michael, Craig, anything you want to add?
Yeah. So one of the biggest kind of learning experiences I'd say along the way was patience for us. Obviously, the defense and government timeline in general is not the same as what you might find in industry. And one very good point I learned was slowness, excuse me, it does not equal lack of interest. It just means there are other things that might be more mission critical in that instant, and you're not privy to all of that information that's going on. So one thing that was emphasized was being politely persistent. You don't want to become a nuisance, but you also don't want to say, well, they haven't replied in 2 weeks, I'm not going to deal with them anymore. You want to be there, checking in, giving updates, sharing wins so that they know, hey, we're still working, we're still here. And that incentivizes them to say, hey, they're making great progress. We do need to prioritize this, and know that just because they don't necessarily reply doesn't mean they've written you off. It just means you have to make sure that you're showing them the value to keep yourself on the forefront of their mind. And that was a real learning experience for us, like I said, because industry, usually if someone quits responding, that means they're not going to buy, or they're not interested, they've moved on. Or they're going to be really quick and say, like, yeah, let's start working things out. DoD is a very different ball game. And so learning that kind of mindset of, okay, they're still here, they're still working with us. And especially, right now, we've been doing some work, as I mentioned, with the Army, and we will not be hearing from them indefinitely. But that doesn't mean it's dead. It just means we have to take a step back and say, okay, we know there's unique situations there. It is a different customer than anything industrial. So getting into that mindset has been a huge help learning from Treble One.
The only thing I'd add is just the different areas, right? Obviously, we had a customer already in Air Force, right? When we were coming into the program through a SIBR and through some other stuff. But then, I think, I mean, how many times did it come up, Brian? I don't know, half a dozen times about the National Guard, right? And some other things, throughout this, just looking at some other areas too, as well as, the different kind of buying personas or care abouts of the different commands and all was helpful for me, right? I knew a customer, and, from a commercial and even federal standpoint, knew this customer, right? But this customer actually had 3 or 4 different ways that you would, could potentially get to them, as well as, approaching National Guard and some other things.
Great, thanks. So this next question is more around, the measurable impact and kind of the growth that you've seen since graduating from the program, or even through the program. So any sort of wins, and kind of how you're measuring success. So, while you all are thinking about that for your own companies and kind of personally, one of the goals that we have for anyone that's looking to apply for this program, and will watch this recording later, is that 75% of the companies that participate within a 12-month period will secure either a prime contract, a subcontract, either a partnership with an OEM or prime, or raise $100,000 in venture capital. And so we're very excited about that metric, because those kind of 4 metrics within our overall goal really drive company growth, right? So there are many different accelerator programs that are out there. All are great. All provide different value to startups at different stages. We're very much focused on the business development side of capturing business with the government for your startup. And so we focus our goals and our metrics around how do we position companies that are applying to actually go capture government contracts to either build their technology or sell their technology. And so as I open this next question up to the 4 panelists here, what measurable impact has the accelerator had on your company's growth since graduation? Whether that's meetings, Reggie mentioned SOCOM, whether that's pitch events, whether that's any sort of investor meetings or raising capital or winning contracts. Kind of want to open up to the four of you now. I know you all just completed the program only a couple months ago, so you're still within that 12-month window, but would love to just be able to speak to some of the successes to date for those who are thinking about applying.
I'll kick it off on this one if no one else will. I don't mean to brag, but we've had a lot of wins that we can tie in with Channel 1 and the MTL, so we are thrilled about that. The most recent was yesterday. We had a meeting with Booz Allen Hamilton, which was an introduction through the Defense Accelerator about potential investment, kind of just following our story, getting that initial introduction, and it went extremely well. Not only did they say, hey, they're interested, they'd love to learn more and kind of start looking through a longer term process, they also helped with a lot of mentorship right off the bat. They said, like, hey, we think marketing's an area where y'all could use some reinforcement, but we've got some good guys for that we can put you in touch with. They said there's another company that's not doing what you're doing, but we think you'll have a lot of room for partnership. We'd love to connect you with them. And how quickly they bought in, I don't think would have been the case if A, the introduction hadn't been through the MTL and the Defense Accelerator, and B, we hadn't kind of learned what makes them tick through that process as well. Other wins that we've had, we placed third in a pitch competition with Draper Associates out in Tuscaloosa not too long ago. That was a huge win for us, as it's hopefully going to kick off our fundraising round. And a lot of our pitch was drawn from some of the refinement we did during the MTL process to get ready to pitch. And the last and hopefully biggest is we have a congressional appropriations ad that we'd started that prior to the Defense Accelerator, but I wouldn't say it was stalling. It was just a slow drudge of a process that really, with the help of the MTL Defense Accelerator, we were able to push that over the edge and get it to a final state where we're in the congressional budget now. So another reason we're really hoping that budget passes soon.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Michael. Anybody else from the panel want to share any wins since participating in the program? I know some are TBD and might not be able to be shared yet, so I'll give you a chance to share if you can.
Sure, a couple. We landed another phase 1 SBIR. We are about to close out a direct to phase 2 SBIR. So 18 months later here, we're about to close, but certainly closing with skills and some of the techniques and what's important to show in presentations and what's not, and we're using kind of in this closeout for direct to phase 2 SBIR. We also participated in the Draper competition out in Tuscaloosa. We closed a bridge round of fundraising and have a lot of good movement even outside of the DoD that's going on within the company as well. So yes, there were a lot of concepts that are defense oriented, but we've been using some of the concepts even in our commercial business as well.
Great. All right. Brian House, I want to open up to you. Any questions that you have for the panelists that are jumping to mind, whether it's around, challenges and lesson learned, community. One of the things that Miller spoke to at one point, which I think is really important for those who are thinking about applying, is how these cohort members come together throughout the course of the 8 weeks. That while they all are running their own separate independent businesses, there's a lot of value gained from sitting in the same room together, talking, sharing stories, lessons learned. You have some companies that are, a couple people just getting started and starting to grow, and others that have raised maybe a Series A round of funding and they're starting to scale. And so, Brian, maybe as you're thinking of, a question for this group, something along the lines of challenges, lessons learned, community might be of value for those who are thinking about applying.
Yes, so I'll add a couple of things. One I thought about a few minutes ago, but the resources that we got access to. So Sharice mentioned that we moved the program around. We had different places host us, from Alabama State University, AUM, Troy University. And so, it was eye-opening for me, having not been in Montgomery for a long time. all the resources that are there. And they gave us facility tours, talked about what they did. So I thought that was a great aspect. But Miller kind of mentioned it earlier, that, everyone, we kind of became a family there for a little while. It was fun to see everyone. And we learned from each other, to your point, Chris, about, there's different size companies, all small, but some very small and some on the larger side of that. We learned from each other. We had a lot of time to talk, and over lunch we just shared stories, and I could see that there were some synergies happening, and some learning just from each other as part of the program. And then you bring in the people, the local sponsors, and folks in Montgomery that are really of the mindset of, let's make these people successful, right? Let's show them that Alabama's got resources, and that we've got their best interests at heart, right? And so being surrounded by people of that mindset was a super thing.
So for the panelists, quick question around advice for future applicants. So for those kind of at the starting process, right? We can't select everybody. We can only pick 5 companies to go through the cohort. You all were selected among a handful of applicants, and so there was a competitive process here. What's some advice you can give to those who are thinking about applying? How can they make sure that they're elevating their application? Hitting on the things that are most important for us as we're trying to figure out which companies are the most ripe and best fit to go and grow within the DoD.
Like any application,
Mhm.
communication, and showing that you really want to be there, be part of the program, interest. That's going to be key to applying. The other thing I'd say is just be truthful, be honest about what are your goals. Because I know Trouble One, certainly we're all looking for alignment. So state your goals clearly, show interest, communicate well, and if it's a good fit, I'm sure you'll be a great candidate. Like Chris said, maybe you don't get picked, but I think maybe there's plans to do multiple of these. So if it's not in the next one, maybe it's in one after that. So that would be my best advice for applicants.
Yeah, and I would also say, when you're thinking about your application or any sort of pitch deck, or you guys are meeting with, with folks within the DoD, is to really try to tie your solution, whether it be a hardware solution, whether it be software or anything in between, to warfighter needs. And there's so much information out online, and you can find presentations. You can go on YouTube and see videos, and recent articles. Right, there's so many blogs and newsletters that are directly related to defense innovation. And so, that's something that, we try to stay on top of, but, a lot of times they're gems of information, like nice bite-sized information that you can use and highlight that and use it for your internal marketing, but also when you're, trying to apply as well.
Yeah, Reggie, I could not agree more with that, because my first bit of advice was going to be do your research, and not just with Treble One and how you can align with them, but like you said, with the DoD, with the Air Force as a whole, have an idea at least of where you think you can fit in, and showing that you have that commitment ahead of time is huge. I think you really nailed that. The other advice I would say is, for once the applicants get past the application process and get in the program, is commit to it. I'm a big believer with programs like this. You get out of it what you put into it. And if you say, all right, I'm going to go sit there, listen once a week, and then go home, I wouldn't expect some of the wins and success that the team has demonstrated already. But if you say, okay, I'm going to go to the one-on-ones with educated questions for Brian, for Chris, really try to dive into that. I'm going to listen to the panelists, be willing to adapt and change if I hear that there may be a better avenue that I need to pursue. Really put in effort with it, and don't just go in saying, yeah, I guess we'll try this.
Greg, anything you want to add?
I mean, I echo a lot of what those guys said, right? Just the ability to, if you're, if you're not local, or even if you are, just the ability to show up, right? Just understand it's commitment on both ends. That the program, that the Treble One folks, and that we're putting into this, but yes, you get a lot of great content. Rich was phenomenal, right, about how does DoD and specifically Air Force work, as well as being able to see others in the Montgomery area, right, and the businesses there, as Brian mentioned. But then showing up for these guys, right, too, and Reggie and Miller and Michael and team, right, that we're able to kind of bounce ideas off of each other, what's working, what's not, and from different levels, right, from when I was in the program, I was with a cybersecurity funded startup, right? Whereas other guys are, completely different areas, right? Doing different things. But there's still a ton of value from showing up, being there in person, and being a part of the overall community. And I think that's important. I think that's the uns
Oh, it looks like Craig maybe froze up on us. I don't know if that was just me, but it looks like maybe it was everybody. So while he's unfreezing, while he's thawing out, we got a couple last questions since we only have a few minutes left here. I want to open that same question up to Brian House, who is running the accelerators for those who maybe are just joining this this webinar later as they may be fast forwarding through different parts. Brian, how can these companies that are applying to this next cycle really maximize the value that they get out of the program? That's what Michael was talking to, Craig was talking to. What can they do to really make sure that they are extracting as much value as possible? Sometimes it's the CEOs and founders that are participating. Other times it's employees, and so they have to be able to communicate that message back to their founders, to their board, to say, hey, this is why this is so important. What can they do to pull that value out of this program and really maximize it?
I think really the most important thing is putting in the effort, like Michael said. Treble One is an ideal company to run this program because of the connections that we have. We were able to bring in subject matter experts in different areas to advise and to just bounce ideas off of, look at slides. So aside from the normal program day that we have that we've talked most about, somebody mentioned that we have one-on-ones every week. And so I'm talking to these guys constantly kind of throughout the week, certainly for our established sessions that we have. But they can ask me questions. We can bounce ideas off of each other. And we can bring in other experts that if I don't understand their technology, and most of the time I don't, we've got other people that we can bring in and to help them out. But you've got to show up for that. You've got to engage with me enough in between program days so that I understand what it is that you need. And in terms of the application process, I wanted to touch on that one as well. The guys hit it pretty good. Show us that you have a product that can help the warfighter, and showcase or show us in the application that you know what that is. And if you don't know what it is, go do a little homework, figure out how that can fit and help the warfighter, because that's kind of one of the key things that we're looking for when we select a company. We want companies that are going to be successful, that are going to help the state of Alabama, going to help the warfighter, and that we have a high likelihood of success for. So, that's what I'll say to that, Chris.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And Trace, I'm going to ask you a question in just a minute to maybe go back through important application dates and timelines of the program. But before we do that, any last minute kind of parting words of wisdom from the panelists for those who are thinking about applying for this next cohort?
I'd say show up with an open mind, be willing to learn, be willing to engage, be willing to participate, and enjoy getting to know not only the people that are leading the program, but your peers that are alongside you as well. Be open to chatting both at the sessions and also outside of the sessions as well. Like I said, the connection was one of my favorite parts about the whole program. So if you could do those things, you're going to have a really great experience in the accelerator.
Yeah, Miller, I think that's a great point about saying keep an open mind, because I was surprised by how much I didn't know going into it. And so yeah, just building off of that, I'd say have a certain level of humility, because there'll be times where you'll realize you're not the smartest person in the room, and that's a good thing.
Reggie, Craig, any parting words?
No, I would kind of echo what those gentlemen are saying, but also you know, it's definitely a journey, right? It's not going to be a sprint. And so you have to take the learnings weekly and see how you can apply it to your company. And experiment, right? Everything isn't going to work. Definitely experiment. But number one, and just to piggyback, like the networking and networking with intention, right? It's not always about what someone can do for you. Just sort of ask questions to see if there's anything that they're doing that your company or you specifically can help with. So I think that's really important.
The big thing for me is, I mean, DoD and federal contracting in general is a long game, right? So it, you know, having the understanding and the knowledge provided through this program to understand how do you attack specifically Air Force, but then broader DoD, is a very important tool in the tool set. If you don't want to play the long game, don't go try and sell to DoD, right? But it obviously there's a tremendous amount of value in that the program, there provided a lot of that. And then, like I was saying, and I don't know where I got cut off earlier, but just the relationships with each of these guys, gals in the program, all of you, you folks here, as well as then the relationships with those local, communities that you're trying to sell to is just crucial, right? You can't just show up as nobody and hope to sell, because you've got the shiniest object. That everyone has shiny objects. So I think those are the big things for me.
That's great feedback, and just appreciate the time and energy you all have given to the program when you were going through it, but then also post-program. Here you are showing up again to be able to share words of wisdom and your insights for the next group that's going through. I think that speaks a lot to just your commitment to other entrepreneurs, kind of that shared community, and sacrifice that it takes to build a startup, and also I think hopefully the value that you gain from the program and willing to kind of come back around and share some of that information. So really appreciate all the time that the panelists gave for those who are going to be watching this later on. To close this out here, Sharice, if you don't mind reiterating, what does the timeline look like for those who are interested in applying, and when their applications are due and the program dates? That'd be great.
Absolutely. So want to thank all of our panelists that participated today. Appreciate all you guys that were in our first cohort of the Defense Accelerator. It was an awesome time, and it was great to have you all then, and it was great to hear about some of your successes and the work that you've been doing now. Brian and Chris, thank you as well. We are looking forward to receiving applications on the 30th of November. That application, not a hard lift. It is available on our MontgomeryTechLab.com website. You fill it in, everything right there on the website, and it's pretty simple. We will then be in contact with you to do interviews the beginning of December, and we will notify you if you're accepted into the program before you go home for Christmas, for sure. And so we want to make sure that everybody has an understanding of what their commitment could look like in the January timeframe, and we will kick things off on the 13th of January. And we hope to wrap up everything by the end of February. So it's a pretty quick time period that we have, but looking forward to it. Again, applications close on the 30th of November. You'll be notified before the holiday, and the program kicks off on the 13th of January. All information and details are on MontgomeryTechLab.com. You can also find the recap videos as well from the past Defense Accelerator cohort, and you can hear a little bit more about the work that Reggie, Miller, and Michael are all doing in their companies and respective areas. But I want to thank everybody for joining today and or listening to this session as we post it on our website, and we'll have available for everyone to get additional information. We will have another webinar on the 20th of November. And that'll be a Q&A where you can ask Brian House all the questions that you might have about the accelerator program. And then we can also provide some additional details as well. But looking forward to doing that. That'll be at 11:30 on November 20th. I think that's a Thursday, November 20th. And that'll give you plenty of time to answer questions and to get those questions answered and asked prior to the submittal time of the 30th of November. But this concludes today's session and look forward to seeing you all at more programs. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thanks,
so much.
everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.